In this video, we're going to begin our process right after our photo shoot by sharing our raw photos with our client. So let me explain how I organize my Capture One sessions. You can see here, what I've done is I've created a simple Capture One session. And the way I organize it is this is my photos drive, and then I have it organized by the year, the month, and then the day with a little bit of a descriptor. And the descriptor that I use is usually where it was shot and then who it was shot with. Okay, so this is my Capture One session, and these are the folders that we'll typically see in a Capture One session, of course. If you've worked with those, you're familiar with this folder layout. It all gets generated by Capture One when you create a session. Now, inside of the Capture folder is where all of the photos go. So we can see I'm working with a lot of different photos. There was a lot of photos that I took in this session, a lot of high-speed shots where really we're only going to use one, but it took like 20, 30 photos to get that one shot. You can see we almost have 2,000 photos in this folder. Now, the process that I do is I do this manually, and this is just something that I've done for years and years and years. I know you can import inside of Capture One, but the process that I use is to take the SD card, and I actually would do this on my Mac. I'll use Finder. I'll take it from the SD card and manually move those over into the Capture folder inside of Capture One. And this is a process that I've done instead of importing since before my Capture One days. It's just a habit I've gotten into. I've never had issues with Capture One, to be honest, but I have had issues with other photo management tools that would crash in the middle of an import, and then I've lost photos. So I'm a little bit paranoid now. So I do it a manual way, but it works perfectly with Capture One because Capture One just looks inside of this Capture folder for any photos to show up in the session. So with all the photos captured in the Capture folder, we can open up our session here. So just open up the session and then let this load up. And as I said, there are a lot of photos in there, so this might take a little bit. I'll go ahead and pause the video while this loads. Okay, here we go. So it's loading in. You can see it hasn't quite even loaded in all the different images here. It's starting to load these in. There we go. They're starting to show up here. So again, this might take a while. It's going to go through. It's just seeing how many images are in this Capture folder. This is something that really does the first time, and what it's doing is building a preview JPEG in the background. That's what we saw. If I minimize this, that's what we saw inside this folder here. It's building out the cache basically for all of the raw folders or files so that Capture One can run a little bit faster. But that first time that it's doing that, it'll run through all the images and process that. So we don't really have to wait for this for the next step, because the next step in my workflow is to send the raw photos to the client. Now, this is an optional thing, and usually when I'm on the shoot, I will ask the client, do you want me to send you all of the raw photos so that you can pick out the ones you want me to edit? Sometimes they say, no, I trust you. Well, you go ahead and pick those out, and then I'll go through the culling process myself. But most of the time, they want to see the raw photos and they want to pick out the ones. And quite honestly, I've done enough photo shoots where I prefer that because I'm okay with them seeing some of the mistakes or some of the things that happened. They were there for them on set to know some of the bloopers or something that might happen. In this case, there was a lot of wind that ruined some of the shots. But I'm okay with them seeing those photos so that they can pick them out and save me the time of having to cull them, and also making sure that they are going to be happy with the ones that finally get edited. And it saves time, so I'm not editing a bunch of stuff that they're not going to like anyway. So what we can do now is, I love this in Capture One. I used to do this manually through something like Google Drive or Dropbox, but I love that Capture One has the ability to share our session with our clients. So we're going to pick our collection. So in this case, I haven't created an actual collection in Capture One. I haven't gone to that step yet. I'm just going to take the entire folder because I want all of the raw images. So all of the raw images, and then we're going to share and manage access. And we could add watermarks if we wanted to. I don't really ever worry about that because they're just previews anyway. But again, depending on our client or how comfortable we are with them, then we may want to do that. There we go. Show it popping up here. Okay, so now we can come in and say, who do we want to give access to? So we can email them, and then Capture One will email them that link. Or usually what I do is I just copy this share link, and then anyone with the link, we can choose the access that they have. So either they can just view the images, they can tag images, they can add tags to them, they can add comments to them, they can rate and comment them. I usually just give my client the full ability to rate, tag, and comment on the images. That way they can do whatever they want to do. There's no limitations to that. And then once this is copied, really we can just send that to them however we want to send them that link. So if I pull over a browser here, it's on another window. Let me open this up. And I've noticed this with the browser that I use is Brave. And I've noticed this pop up sometimes, but I've never had issues with it. I think that's just a Brave thing. I haven't noticed it in other browsers. But you can see it's cycling through the process, right? So it's pulling these in. And then this is what the client would see on the other end. And they'd be able to come in, add stars to them, or add comments to them if they want to. I'm just going to sit there and let this load. But we'll get to see what this looks like on the other end, on the back end, once the client has gone through and gone through the rating process. Now, my process as a photographer at this time essentially is to take a break. In this case, I know this client very well. We've worked together a lot using Capture One Live. So I know I can take this link and just send her this link right now and then tell her it won't be done, finished uploading for a little while yet. But if it's a new client, usually I wait for all of these to finish loading. So we'll know once it hits this number here. If I come back over to Capture One, see it's still loading into Capture One even, but we can see the sequential number of the images. This would stop loading in once all of the images are loaded. So if it's a new client, usually I'm going to wait for that process, come back and check on it, make sure it's all uploaded before sending the link. Otherwise, they'll just tell me everything didn't upload when it's really just working on uploading. And this process can take some time depending on how many photos you have. For this many, almost 2,000 photos, it'll probably take a couple hours with my computer and internet speed. Basically, what Capture One is doing is it's creating the previews. So it's still working on creating the previews. Make this a little bit bigger so we can see both at the same time. It's still working on creating the previews here. Because if you remember, we had 1,800 some photos in the capture folder. So we can see the number here. It's still working on building the previews for the Capture One session. And then once it's done with that, it's also working on processing the previews to then upload to Capture One Live for this session here, for the Capture One Live capability here. So it will take a little bit of time, but we can just set this, let this run, and we can come back once this is done. So we're going to end this video here, and then we'll come back after the client has reviewed them. So my next process is to take this link, send it to the client. They will go through this process once it's all uploaded to make comments on them or star them or however they want to let me know which ones they want to edit. And then we'll come back after the client has reviewed them so we can see what that whole process is like. See you then.